Howdy, folks. Happy Wednesday. Happy hump day. We are here. We have game 2 of the Stanley Cup final to get to look at before, this is our little bit of a preview, but we have our little bit of a pre-show with Russ. Go ahead, Russ.
So we always say that guys, for players of the NHL or the NFL are the toughest. And every once in a while, people that I know say, hey, the Tour de France type guys and gals are pretty tough too. And, they're always having these pileups. The other day there was a pileup and Mark Soler fractured both of his elbows and he finished the heat. He finished out the day. And, it's easy to say, oh, look at the football players, they get crushed. And, look at the hockey players, they come up bloody like Gallagher. But I don't know, Kev, could you imagine riding your bike with 2 fractured elbows?
Well, that's just an incredible story, Russ. I mean, I hadn't heard that before, but yeah, fractured elbows. I actually have not discussed who's the toughest since I was 8 years old. And, we were trying to decide whether Batman could beat up Superman. So I don't know who's tougher, but that's incredible story. Like, your elbows, like it just pains me to even think about it,
Yeah.
That's amazing. So those, I will say the Tour de France too, in terms of grueling sports, we've all rode bikes. We can all kind of relate to that. And
try and ride one up a big hill.
Yeah, straight up a hill. Yeah.
No, I won't. I definitely won't.
Yeah.
I will not try to ride a bike up a hill because I'll have a heart attack. Now, I'll give you my opinion on this subject, Russ. I based on the number of injuries that have occurred in the NBA, I would be loath to say that basketball players are the toughest ones. Not to say that these injuries aren't serious, but they're dropping like flies in the NBA.
But they're mostly ankles, and I'm not saying that's lesser, but it is a little lesser. It's mainly ankles and calves and that those guys are dealing with.
Yeah, and Giannis Antetokounmpo. Oh, I always butcher that name.
And knees, sometimes the knee, like Giannis.
He had a hyperextended knee, and Kyrie Irving with the ankle, and Trae Young with an ankle.
But I'm telling you, these guys from the Tour de France, Mike, they crash, and if they don't get taken off in the ambulance, they just keep going.
Well, I'm not going to make a Lance Armstrong joke, so let's start the show. For the hockey world, today is Wednesday, June 30th, 2021.
I'm Russ Cohen from Sportsology.
I'm Kevin Allen from HockeyBuzz.
And I'm Michael Agello, and this is the HockeyBuzzcast here on HockeyBuzz.com. All right, we'll save the preview of Game 2 till the end of the show. A lot of news over the last few days. Last night, the NHL awards, and we'll just go through them quickly, not really like in-depth analyze them. But Russ and I should have a little bit of pride in the fact that we selected Kirill Kaprizov as our picks for our candidate for the Calder, and he did win with 99 of the 100 first place votes. Jason Robertson, who Russ talked about a lot going into the year, was second. Alex Nedeljkovic of Carolina was third. And, oh, by the way, tied for 15th, Russ, was Ilya Sorokin.
Well, Mike says that because Eck had him picked for the Calder and for the Vezina.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But not a big surprise with the year.
It isn't. Actually, it's funny because I did an article for a collectibles website called GoGTS early in the year. And the rule was, though, I had to have a card so I could write about the guy and they could show the card. And I'm like, listen, I can't do this article because the guy who might win the award is Kirill Kaprizov. And this was in September I did it. And he doesn't have a card. So they're like, all right, you can put a mention at the bottom. So I did because I knew there was more than a great chance that he would win it. And I know he's 23. Would I like to see the age lowered? Yes. But it's probably not going to. So that's it.
Kev, any thoughts on Kaprizov?
Well, he was such a dominant player. I'd like to know who the one person is that didn't vote for him and why. Robertson was great, but he certainly didn't have the impact that Kaprizov had.
No.
You look at the impact on his team and where they are, and now there's a little bit of uncertainty about his future with the new contract, and that's one of the issues you have with Russian players, because the Continental Hockey League exists, and they have options where they can make a substantial amount of money, maybe not NHL money, but into the millions of dollars. And once I again repeat the famous Bruce McNaugh quote: "Million here, a million there. Pretty soon you're talking about real money." Well, so they talk about real money over in the KHL. So, he has options, and I hope he stays, because he's such a dynamic,
Me too.
Player, and we just don't have enough of those guys.
Yeah, I mean, if all he wanted to prove is that they could come over to the NHL and dominate, which he did as a rookie, and then he could go back to the KHL, then yeah. But I think he wants. I would think that he would want to establish himself, and I think he'll probably get a pretty good deal from Minnesota. Whether it's enough to match what CSKA Moscow or whoever has his rights. Whether it matches that, who knows? But
you're gonna have to give him at least $7 million for 5 years to get him interested, because CSKA will probably give him $3 or $4 million in a paper bag.
Yeah, right. With a
paper bag.
Yeah, with maybe some vodka.
Yeah.
In the paper bag. I mean. I've found with the elite level Russian players, sometimes we undersell the lure of playing at home with a shorter schedule and being with your friends and family. Like we look at that and say, well, why would you do that? Well, you're a stranger in a strange land. Right. When you come over here, a lot of the Russians don't speak English before they come over. They have to learn from watching television. Some of them take some courses, so it's a little bit more difficult than with Scandinavian players who come over and have already, taken English in school for multiple years and such. And, they don't have the option of earning lots and lots of money over in Finland or Sweden. But you can make lots of money and stay at home and play a reduced schedule and be done by when are they done? They're
they're done by April or May.
April, yeah.
I was gonna say the first week in May, something like that. So so all that is a lure. But I have found with elite level players is they want to match their abilities against the best in the world. And if you're gonna do that, there's only one league you can play in. I like Ovechkin, he would not be satisfied to play against KHL players.
Right.
Yeah.
He needs to play over here. So, most of them would like to go back. I think I could see Ovechkin being 44, 45 playing in the KHL.
Yeah, he'll do it, Datsuk. He'll definitely do that.
Yeah.
I mean, he could probably make $6 or $7 million playing for SKA St. Petersburg or whoever, or Moscow, whoever. But all right, moving on to the Vezina. Marc-Andre Fleury wins by 9 points over Andrei Vasilevsky. 14 of the first place votes. Vasilevsky second, Philip Grubauer third, Connor Hellebuyck fourth, Varlamov fifth, UC Saros sixth, and Mike Smith got 2 third-place votes, Russ. What did you think on this one?
I really thought it should have been Grubauer. He had a lower goals against than Fleury. Fleury had the better save percentage. He was 30-9. He had 7 shutouts. 7 shutouts. This was a year that they gave it to Fleury because it's his last year. He's never been nominated, so now it's getting like the Oscars, and they gave it to him. And I love Marc-Andre Fleury as a guy, and I've loved watching him, but I don't think he should have won it this year.
So what you're saying, Russ, is that this is the equivalent of Henry Fonda winning for On Golden Pond?
Yeah.
Yeah. So, Kevin, what do you think on this?
Well, I thought I was fine with Fleury winning it, and I thought he deserved it. Statistically, you can talk about the shutouts, but the impact. Fleury wasn't supposed to be the guy, and he ended up being the guy, and ended up, getting the net. Not that they would have voted before he was the playoff goalie, but I just think he had a remarkable season. And I think you got to sort of look beyond the numbers and look at what was going on and say, okay, he was the best. And I'm sure he's got to, even as nice a guy he is, he's got to be walking around today with a kind of screw you attitude because, he wasn't supposed to be the guy in Vegas. And
Right.
when it was all said and done, he was the guy. So.
Well, it was funny because Alan Walsh posted a congratulatory picture of Marc-Andre Fleury after winning the Vezina, and I saw the picture and immediately responded, "Where's the sword?" Because that was the last picture that Alan Walsh posted of Marc-Andre Fleury. And I wonder, okay, he didn't make a stink after Fleury was pulled after Game 4 and Leonard started Game 5 or Game 6, but we talked about it before, Kev. They can't go into next season with $12 million against the cap with goaltenders. And I looked at it yesterday. He's entering his final year of his contract. The cap hit is 7, but the money paid is 6. If they bought him out, which they're not going to do, the cap hit would be $2 million for the next 2 years. That tells me that it would make sense for Vegas to retain $2 million to move Fleury or do the three-way trade, use a team like Buffalo or Ottawa to filter money through to get him to where he wants to. But I just can't fathom that they're going to go into next year with both Fleury and Leonard in goal.
No, well, you wouldn't think so, and especially given that everybody in the hockey world seems to think they're going to get in the Jack Eichel sweepstakes. So if they're going to do that, they're going to need some money. They do have, I think, now $6 million in cap space, but that means they can't keep Alec Martinez. They can't. There's 2 or 3 guys that they would like to sign. It won't be so they're going to have to lose some people, and the easiest way to do that would be and obviously, both of the goalies played well in the regular season. They both had really good numbers. So Robin Leonard certainly is capable of being the number 1 goalie. So how many guys voted? Different goalies got votes. Did you name all the guys that got votes? 7
goalies got different goalies got votes.
Yeah, that's just so amazing too. I think, I wanted to talk a little bit about Damian Cox went at it again, saying that the Adam Fox winning the Norris vote was another indication that the professional hockey writers have lost their touch and should be lose their voting privileges. And, I'll say what I said before, like there's nobody better suited and in the best position to vote than the writers. And if you want to see how bad it would get, if you put together a blue ribbon panel of 30 people, you're going to end up with that kind of vote.
Yeah.
How do you even explain that? Like if we did that as writers, how many people would be saying, who the hell voted for,
I'm looking at the list here for the Norris, and Adam Fox got 40 first place votes of the 100 votes. Cale Makar got 31 and Victor Hedman got 22. Anybody who's
I'll tell you what though.
Go ahead.
That's unbelievable that Hedman only got 22 because Hedman averaged 25 minutes a game. He was just 2 points behind Fox, and Makar was a point a game because he missed 11 games. It was the tightest of all the trophies, so I probably would have leaned towards Hedman only because he played more minutes. He was right there with points, and he had other things going too with the block shots and everything. But I think Fox is a fine choice. But the fact that he only got 22 votes makes no sense to me.
Yeah, and he was the only one of the only one of the defensemen who got more double figures in votes for first, second, third, fourth, and fifth. Hedman, not even Fox did. Fox only had 6 fourth-place votes and 5 fifth-place votes. So, and I'm not going to slam Damian, but I don't think Damian is a member of the Professional Hockey Writers Association.
He's not.
So until you are, shut up.
Well, and what's often just not discussed is the fact is like we're splitting hairs here.
Yeah,
we are splitting hairs.
Yeah, Hedman, Fox, and Makar are all great defenseman.
Yeah.
If we were building a team, and we were starting from scratch, we'd probably want Fox because he's young. But I talked about this with the general manager, and he just said, well, if you ask me would I trade Fox for Makar, I would. And I said, yeah, I get that. Makar's dynamic, and it depends what kind of team you got. But I said, that's not what the award is about. He goes, oh, I know that. I just thought, But, and the same thing is like right now, the best defenseman in the game, if you ask me, I'd say Hedman.
Yeah.
But, so if you voted for any of those three guys, I'm totally fine with that.
Yeah, me too. But who were some of the others, Mike?
Fourth was Dougie Hamilton. Fifth, Charlie McAvoy. Sixth, Shea Theodore. Seventh, Darnell Nurse. Eighth, Mackenzie Weegar. Ninth, Chris Letang. And 10th, Jacob Chikrin. There are about 10 more, but that's.
How does Mackenzie Weegar get in there, honestly?
He had a great season, but Mackenzie Weegar got 15 fifth place votes.
Yeah, that's fine.
All right, that's fine.
So
did anybody else get first place votes besides the big three?
Okay, Nurse did not get a first place vote, neither did Weegar. Letang got one, and Jacob Chikrin got one. So all the names: Fox, Makar, Hedman, Hamilton, McAvoy, Theodore, Letang, and Chikrin all got first place votes.
Well, the one issue I had, one of the things I hated, and we talked about this before, but I hated in the lady being that people look at penalty minutes because the award has nothing to do with penalty minutes. But I also hated when people just went to the scoring leaders for Norris, and the Chikrin vote sort of to me kind of sounds like that. He had a lot of goals, and he had a breakthrough season. He was very good, and so let's not make it about the statistics.
And even Letang at this point, yes, he had 40 points or whatever, but Chris Letang's not a Norris candidate anymore. He's really not.
No.
But ironically, the critic regarding the Norris didn't say anything about Connor McDavid getting 100 of 100 for first place votes for the Hart. Now, I'm not saying that I said to Russ, McDavid was going to, as soon as McDavid got the 100 points, he was going to win the Hart. There was no doubt. But 100 out of 100?
Yesterday there were predictions of him getting 100 out of 100, and I just assumed he would. Like, he was so dominant. When Carlson won Norris a few years ago, Bob McKenzie, who I have such great respect for, wrote something, and I thought it really was an important thing to bring out. He said, I want to vote for the best all-around defenseman. But at some point, numbers become so staggering that you just got to go, he wins because of the numbers. That's Mike Gardner in the Hall of Fame.
Right.
Maybe you didn't think of him as a Hall of Fame player, but his number of 30 and goal seasons, well, Carlson that one year had just unbelievable numbers and was so much better, and it was just so overwhelming. It really didn't matter how great he was or wasn't.
Yeah, but here's my argument, Kev. Like, they asked me about it yesterday, early in the day, about who I thought would win it, and I said McDavid for the Lindsay. I knew that would happen, but I said, you know what? I would vote Austin Matthews, and I'll tell you why. Basically, McDavid, even though he is the point leader and the faster player, Matthews works twice as hard in the crease to get those 40 goals. And if you took away those 40 goals from the Leafs, what the hell are they? I mean, honestly, that's you still have Draisaitl in Edmonton. Yes, you have Tavares and a few other players with the Leafs, but if you take him away, there's nobody that's going to the net for Toronto to score those goals in those tough areas. And I said, it reminded me like a lot of what Phil Esposito used to do in the crease. And obviously he's more dynamic than Phil because, he could score from a lot of other areas too. But I just feel like now we're like minimizing the best goal scorer because McDavid's really fast and he had the most points.
I think we had to take into account the gimmick of the 100 points and, what it sort of represented in this case. Like, there was it was a big part of the season. People started talking about it. it dominated the talk on social media. Like your argument's a good one, because that little phrase in the definition of the award about most valuable to his team,
Yes,
it always causes confusion.
Yes.
Because people interpret that differently. And I really think that Hart Trophy wording should be redone, because, there was no doubt Connor McDavid was the one offensive player that gained the most, interest this season, because of what he was doing. And so I thought it was, I almost felt it was important that he get 100 out of 100. So,
well, I'll renew my argument because, there is a differentiation between the offensive forward and the defensive forward, with the Selke as the award for the defensive forward, but there's no differentiation with defensemen, where I think there should be a best offensive defenseman and a best defensive defenseman, whether you want to name it the Rod Langway Award or the Tim Horton Award or whatever. But I think that some of these defensemen who are, two-way guys who are integral to like winning games, I think get ignored. Langway was the exception to the rule, where he was not a big point guy, and he won the Norris because he was probably the best defensive defenseman of the last 30 or 40 years.
I'll say one more thing too. So, Matthews had an 8-goal lead over McDavid, and then Draisaitl was fourth with 31. There's not a Leaf to be found in the top 20 or 25. I'd stop scrolling.
Yeah. No, I mean, so, okay. So let's, I don't know if we want to go into the first and second team All-Stars, just the only thing.
I don't know.
Yeah, not really. Okay. The big news that came out this morning, Kev, was an announcement via Twitter from Jonathan Toews, updating his situation regarding his health, and that he appreciated the support from the Blackhawks and from the fans, and an indicator that he will be back next season. But the funny thing was, and Russ and I were on the same page on this, this was awfully perfectly timed to sort of deflect away from the.
Oh, don't tell me that you're on the conspiracy train.
No, it's not a conspiracy train. Hey, Kev, you know what he could have done? He's been in Chicago for a little while already. He could have gone on Instagram and say, hey, I want to thank all the fans. I appreciate it. This is what I had, and this is what it is. Instead, they did a well-produced video that they put out there, and they showed him at practice. They followed him around.
I got plenty of time to crucify the Chicago Blackhawks yesterday and tomorrow. Today, I want to talk about Jonathan Toews coming back.
Okay, that's fair.
That is such a big story. And I saw on Twitter, and I just rolled my eyes when I'm seeing people saying, oh, this is all about deflecting and all the. And even if it was, I don't care. Like that was yesterday. We'll talk about it tomorrow. We're going to crucify them for a very long time if they are as guilty as they look on this. But, to mix that into the good news that, we all saw the kind of things that people were saying online about what he might have.
Right.
And now it turns out they've kind of got it sounds like anyway, under control.
Yeah.
And I think this is, I just wrote a column that I lost before this show started that, I have to refashion. But I just kind of wrote about that, in 24 hours we had, we say all the time about good news, good things happen to good people, but rarely do they. But in the case of the last 2 days with Granato and Toews, we too have two really good people, and good things have happened to them. The fact that this is, and I don't want to diminish what he has, because obviously it was enough to keep him out of the season. But I think compared to all the stuff that was being speculated by the people who got their medical degrees from WebMD, this is like tremendous news. Like this is, and just not, it's great for the team. They're going to be back. They'll be stronger. They got Dodge and Toews at center. and they're going to have God, I'm drawing a blank. Strom.
Yeah.
They're pretty good now down the middle, but it's just great news for Taves, like that it's something that they can manage, and it looks like he's planning on being back and all that kind of stuff. So I'm sure the people that got their degrees at WebMD will have something to say about it. Maybe they'll.
I mean, look, obviously what he had was hard to diagnose, and they probably took half a season to just diagnose what he had, and I get that. Yeah. So, it still doesn't mean he's going to be able to play a full season. Like, we don't know. He might have to, do some sort of load management. We don't know.
Well, yeah, we don't know. We don't even know whether, how many times do you hear, well, doctors thought it was this, and then, and all that kind of stuff. So we're not sure of it, but right now it really looks like good news. And I'm just really, I think this is such, a good news story day. And I just hate mixing it in with the what happened in 2010 and how, and I don't want to diminish that either, but the two shouldn't be connected, in my opinion.
Okay. Well, I wanted to get some of your thoughts on what Gary Bettman said, because he talked on Monday after our show on Monday, and Russ and I talked about this yesterday with Anthony. The one scenario, and avoiding the Chicago thing because we'll be talking about that going forward a lot.
Yes.
But the Olympic story, really, the comments of Bettman on the Olympics. After I heard them, I thought it was maybe 50-50. Now, all of us seem to think the chances are maybe 2-1 that they're not going.
Well, I think it's 80-20 they're going.
Okay.
And I say that based on it really, the ball I think is going to be in the players' court. What I've been told is that even though Bettman's not thrilled about going, this is something that was negotiated. They're going to live up to their promise. The problem is the terms of going over are difficult. One of them will be that there'll be nobody coming from America other than the players to go to China.
Oh, no families.
No families.
Wow.
So if the players are willing to do that, and I haven't done a wide sampling, but I've done a small sampling, and apparently they are. That's why I say it's 80-20.
Okay.
So, but I think it's really going to be up to the players. If all the players get together and they decide, it's not worth it. If we can't take our families, part of the joy of going over is you have your family there to celebrate. I can bring my dad along to see me play in the Olympics.
Yeah.
So I don't know. Maybe they will go along with that. But I don't think it sounded as dire.
You have to admit, Kev, Gary Bettman's annoyed with it, though. He is.
Oh, yeah. But, as I said to the guy that was telling me about this before, saying, Bettman didn't say, like some of the headlines say that it's done. And he didn't say that. And my reaction was just what you said. He's been against it for a very long time, and he was against it, and they're against it because they feel like there's no benefit from it. Now, I disagree. I think there's some value to grow the game, but they can't quantify that. They've never been able, and they know there's some hardship. Like, it's not a problem in Toronto or New York or Philadelphia, but it is a problem in cities where they've got to, restart the walk-up sales again. In Florida and Nashville and Anaheim and Arizona and, all these places. Yeah, where all of a sudden you don't play, and they're going to shut down because they are going to play the All-Star game.
Yeah.
Yes.
So we're going to end up with
almost a 3-week break.
That's correct. And so now for 3 weeks they're not selling tickets, and it's the same thing. I wrote a column recently and I talked about that we're going to go into another year of COVID, and teams are petrified about ticket sales because they have found that people have said, we can watch the games on TV.
Right.
And, it's not the hardcore guys. Like a couple people wrote me and said, isn't playoff attendance proof that they won't have a problem. And I said, no, they're not worried about the playoffs. They know people will come into playoffs. It's, those games in October, November, December, January.
Well, my answer to that is, Kev, you have to do everything you can to improve the in-game experience. As an example, like for Tampa here during the Cup, they have one of the better on-ice ones. They have the lightning bolt that actually is a real lightning bolt that they turn on. They've got a big section for the organ. Like, I don't have those things in my living room.
Well, no, that's true, but
sure you don't.
yeah, that is true, but I just think it's just going to be harder. So I know it is. I mean, some of the teams have already reported that they're having a little difficulty on season tickets.
Teams may not want to hear this, but one of the things that they could do for the fans is to lower ticket prices at least.
Well, no, and that's being considered. That was in my column. That is being considered. There's some debate going on, and in each, what should they do? Should they reduce the rate? Should they keep it the same? Obviously they lost a lot of money. Like, it's not an easy decision.
Yeah, they want to make the money back. We understand that.
Yeah, it's not easy. I said to one, well, they wouldn't consider raising it, and somebody said, don't you think you could raise it in Toronto and people would pay?
Yeah, in Toronto, yes. In Toronto, they could take out a second.
Just look at Major League Baseball. I mean, if the NHL wants to turn into that, hey, they got a lot of money coming in their TV contract, and they just want to be that gate sport like Major League Baseball that's like 75% full, which they can't afford to do, and we know that, then, maybe they should lower the price for this year.
Yeah. Well, I mean, they're going to have to make some hard decisions about what to do. I would lower it just to get people back. I know we're having in Michigan, and the Tigers have played better than they did last year, but it's not full, and they're offering tickets for really unbelievably low prices, $10 for for lower level, that kind of thing. So
and I know that in Buffalo, where the Blue Jays are playing right now, and I know it's it's sort of a boutique situation because they're going to eventually leave probably in August or September when the border opens up. They're selling tickets for $29. Of course, not for the Yankee games because they have to milk Yankee fans of $120 a ticket. But
it doesn't matter. Your GM thinks your team sucks anyhow. So what's the difference?
No, he doesn't.
Yes, he does. He said we suck.
Okay. No, I think he's wrong, but okay.
He said that yesterday.
Yes. Well, they won 11-5 yesterday.
I know, but he said it before they won 11-5.
He's trying to motivate. He's trying to motivate them, Russ. Come on. Kev, yesterday we had a significant signing. Ryan Nugent-Hopkins re-upping with Edmonton on an 8-year max deal, and this is the thing that I found curious. He took about almost $1 million pay cut, but got the 8-year term and got the no move clause. And I think that potentially this could set a trend in this market, especially with the cap being flat. If there are players out there that like where they are, this is the price that they're going to have to pay. We'll give you the term, we'll give you security, but you're going to have to take a little bit less. And that's what Nugent-Hopkins did. That's what Wayne Simmons did in a smaller, much shorter situation in Toronto. How widespread do you think that will be as free agency gets closer?
Yeah, that's interesting. Well, the fact he took less, and the fact that we've been hearing that Taylor Hall will take less as well to stay in Boston. We've heard that in the past. But it's never worked out that way.
Right.
We've heard general managers say, well, they're going to have to take less this year because we're all tight. And now we've actually seen it happen, and we think it's going to happen with Taylor Hall. So, I like the fact that, like they gave him the no move clause. Like it looks like everybody's trying to work together to resolve this. And I'll tell you what, I think that's a crucial signing. I was amazed to read so many Edmonton fans who had it in their heads that if you got rid of Nugent-Hopkins, you could get 2 players, and
you couldn't.
And that never works out.
But I will say this: I don't think this should be the model, Mike, because giving up too much term is a killer. Now, Kenny Holland, when he took over that team, they didn't have a lot of cap space, so he's almost got to make this deal no matter what. And I get it for that circumstance, but if teams are going to start just handing out term like that, this league will be like the NBA trying to make these massive 6-player trades just to have some cap space. And I think that's a bad road to go down. I do.
Yeah, and he's going to, like I said, that contract goes through age 36.
Yeah,
that's now, but the last couple of years of the deal, the cap hit trails off, and they might end up buying him out, or he may end up retiring before 36. So it may not even be a factor. But
and what was his average? His AAV?
His AAV before was $6 million, so he's taken 5.125, so it's $875,000 less.
Yeah, so that's that's $40 million, and so that's probably what this really is. It's the same, and GMs always would point this out to me, but it's a hard concept for the public to grasp. Even though it's an 8-year deal, they're sort of viewing it in their heads as
a 6-year deal.
No, I get that.
7. So he's really getting, that amount of money, and then, at the end, they'll buy him out.
But the only problem is now, Kev, when you have a team like you saw, like Chicago, if you got 2 or 3 guys like that and they all age too quickly, then you're in trouble.
Yeah, no, you're right. You're right. You have to be, very careful not to overutilize this. But they have to have they don't have enough players to play with Draisaitl.
No, I think this one was necessary for them. I do.
Like they really had to keep him.
But
I think they got to keep Adam Larson too.
Ben, I know that I think Drager reported that they're working on a deal with Larson too. But the funny thing is, and I wrote a Leaf perspective on Zach Hyman as tied to this. Players like Hall, they got a big contract from Edmonton. Same thing with Nugent Hopkins. They've made their money, not big money, but they've made money to the point that they might be willing to take a little bit less to stay where they want to stay. Zach Hyman has only been making $2.25 million the last 4 years. This contract is his chance to make big money. So I don't know whether he will take less to stay in Toronto or whether he's just going to go where the biggest money that he's paid, who gives him the best offer. So that's going to be the interesting little sort of dichotomy between some of these free agents over the next few weeks. But
let's talk about Larson just for a minute though, because he made $4 million last year. He does play 24 minutes. I don't know if I would give him anything more than a flat $4 million. He was averaging 4.1. Right. I don't think I could go over $4 million for him. I mean, I have Evan Bouchard coming, and he does play a role. There's no question he plays a role, but he could price himself out too.
And he's a right-hand shot. But I mean, I'd maybe give him $4 million and maybe give him 3 years. But if I give him any more than that, I wouldn't. If they go longer than that, then I don't know.
Then it's getting risky.
And Russ, tell me about Evan Bouchard. In your mind, it seems to me like he's slow in developing. Would you say that, or do you think?
I don't think he's slow in developing. I think they're slow in accepting him being put in the lineup the same way that they don't want to put Romanoff in the playoff lineup for Montreal. I think it's like that. He is a good skater. He can be physical at times. He's tremendous on the power play. He's got a great shot, and he's pretty good defensively. This guy is not a wallflower, and this guy is not a one-dimensional offensive player. So I think he really
just don't understand why he's not plugged in there. For a team that we say every year that they're not good enough defensively,
because their coach is hypersensitive to defense.
Right.
And if Evan Bouchard comes in there and makes a couple mistakes early on, that's why. And
look what they did at the deadline. They brought in veterans like Kulikov to play instead of putting a Bouchard in there. And they were without Clefbaum, and Clefbaum could be out. Apparently
he's out for a while.
He might be out. They're saying this is career threatening. That's the shoulder injury. So if that's the case, I mean, I don't know. I mean, I've heard differing opinions on that, but okay.
Well, I read this morning a story, and I wanted to bring this up.
Yep.
Where they were suggesting that the Islanders are having to look at real hard things for the expansion draft, like leaving Leddy, which had been predicted before, and Jordan Eberle. Now, Eberle, is still a 20-goal scorer.
Yeah.
And he's, 31. I started thinking, are there going to be a lot of those players? Are we going to see, meaning 10
I think
players?
there's going to be some. I mean, Kev, the one thing, Lou Lamoriello doesn't really take a hit for the guys he ever loses, like Devin Taves, because, they're getting pretty far in the playoffs. But every year, if you keep losing one and you're staying close to the cap, it's going to catch up with you. And so if they lose Eberle, he's going to be really hard to replace.
It might be a situation where Lou thinks that they won't take Eberle with 3 years left at $5.5 million. So, I mean, it's like,
why not? You have to get to the cap floor.
I would take him. I mean, he could still play. They got to score goals.
Yep.
I would take him in a minute.
I would take him in a heartbeat.
The 800-pound gorilla in all this is going to be the Red Wings. After they sign their restricted free agents, they're going to have $27.5 million left.
Right.
And they're going to be able to look at all these guys and say yay or nay, because it's a small number of teams that can actually participate in the free agent marketplace.
Well, they could be in on Zach Hyman, who was a teammate of Dylan Larkin, and he played at Michigan, so that's possible. Just to go through a couple things quickly before we end the show, because Russ has got to go at 1:55, so we got 5 minutes here. Pierre LeBrun, I'll mention the first two words, and of course, this is what Eck always talks about: offer sheets. Not happening, but Pierre LeBrun wrote Cale Makar, Miro Heiskanen, Rasmus Dahlin, all restricted free agents, all eligible to be offer sheeted. Do I think that'll happen? Not a chance in hell.
Not in a flat cap world, no.
It's good for a column, Kev. That's what I have to say. It's good for a column.
Yeah, no, I know. I delivered a message to Ack last year from a GM who said he said, I hear every year that that Hockey Buzz talks about offer sheets, and they have it. But he said last year he thought there was a chance there could be one or two.
Okay,
but it didn't happen.
That's funny.
And with the flat cap, I mean, yes, teams are vulnerable to it, but a team like Colorado and a team like Dallas, I don't think they are. Buffalo has got oodles of cap space. You would almost be doing them a favor to sign Dahlin to, if it's a reasonable contract, you'd almost be doing them a favor signing him to an offer sheet.
We're more likely to see the three-way trade than we are the offer sheet.
Right. Now, Darren Drager reported that Chicago is big in on the big defensemen that are potentially in this market. OEL, Seth Jones by trade, or Dougie Hamilton via free agency. And the only thing I can think of, Kev, is that they know that Brent Seabrook is done. So that clears the $6.875 million off of their cap. So they have the money to go out in free agency and sign a big defenseman, and I think they definitely need help on the blue line.
Yeah. I mean, I think the Blackhawks made it clear, and I think this was an indication that Taves was coming back, that they're going to try to compete this year with the team they have. So with Taves coming back, and because of that, everybody said they were going to go out and land a defenseman. So
yeah, right. I don't think they should land Dougie Hamilton because they have Adam Boquist, and then you're starting to have guys then that are too offensive and not enough guys who could actually play some good defense. So I don't think Dougie Hamilton's the right fit for them. I don't.
And getting to game two, Russ, just saw the tweets. Alex Killorn, as I mentioned yesterday, who blocked a shot in the second period and did not return. He will not play tonight. I did not see who is replacing him in the lineup. Probably Matthew Joseph, but there are other possibilities.
I mean, it could be Matthew Joseph, or they could go with an extra defenseman. They've done that too. So
true. Joel Armia is in, and Evans is out for Montreal. Otherwise, the lineup.
That's a good change. Evans was playing great, and then he's been out for so long, he just didn't look great. They need everybody to play at their fullest capacity, and so Armia will give them a little jump. They really do need to score the first goal, and somehow they need to score something like a shorthanded goal, something to spark them, because they just got worn out, and Carey Price was worn out by the middle of that third period last game.
All right, Russ, drop off. I'll ask Kevin.
See you guys.
Thanks, Russ. Kevin, so we previewed the series on Monday, and game one wasn't a thorough domination because it was 2-1 early in the third period, but
Right.
I did think that Tampa Bay, they did the things that I think we thought that they were going to do. I didn't know they were going to target, and I use the word target loosely here. They definitely focused on Brendan Gallagher and pounded him to dust. And they really, and I think that was definitely a tactic. I think it worked, and they played a very fine defensive game and were able to generate a lot of offense. The loss of Killorn, no matter how long it is, I think will affect him because he's a big body in front of the net. But what did you think of the game one performance and what's going to happen in game two?
I mean, I agree with you on Killorn. I think he's a pretty valuable player. I think we always underestimate how well he plays for them. I didn't think the Gallagher thing was that big of a deal. But saying all that, I think the way I looked at it, Montreal tried to play exactly the same way they had been playing, but it doesn't really work as well against Tampa. And I guess I never thought about this, but they put their two defensemen out, and then your forwards crash the net, and then the Montreal Canadian defensemen punish you. But that's not the way the Lightning play. They dart in and out and everything, so they never really got punished,
right?
Because it was okay. For the defensemen to kind of stand there from the Lightning perspective. And, Montreal had been losing some defensive zone faceoffs, and they lost a big one. We always talk about, and I think fans kind of gloss over when the inability to sort out the defensive coverage. Mm-hmm. And we saw that on that faceoff when Point wins the faceoff clearly. Kucherov gets the puck. There are three Montreal players standing around, and nobody could figure out who to cover, and Kucherov walks across, and boom, it's in the net. So, and the other thing is, and I keep reminding people on radio shows of this, but Tampa is actually allowing fewer goals than Montreal. Like, they're playing well defensively, whether it's goaltending or defense. So, I think it was just a reminder what everybody has said that, talent-wise, Tampa Bay has the better team. Mm-hmm. And when both teams are playing well, Tampa Bay is going to, be supreme, and they were. Now, saying all that, what you do if you're Montreal is you say, look, just as you pointed out, we were 2-1 in the third. We could have won that game.
Right, and if they get the first goal, and they didn't on Monday, if they get the first goal, then it's a completely different game because that allows Montreal to play that defensive style and the counterattack, and then you have Tampa trying to tie the game, and if they give up the puck at center ice, then Montreal goes the other way. So, yeah, I mean, to your point also, yeah, Tampa is not going to, unless you're a guy like Killorn or a guy like Pat Maroon. Tampa is not going to stand in front of the net and take cross checks from Shea Weber and Petrie. They're going to slide in and out, and you could tell Weber was getting frustrated with that because he was taking he was slashing Kucherov, he was slashing Stamkos in front of the net because they were constantly moving in and out, and he couldn't punish them. And now the whole thing with Montreal was their ability to wear down the opposition by beating on them, and those defensemen, they're not being able to beat on those players because they're moving in and out. So it's a good tactic.
Yeah, and Montreal relies on its physical game, but they don't take into account that Tampa Bay can play that way. I mean, there was 115 hits, and one hit separated both teams. Now, the counts on those sometimes are off, but
right.
It felt pretty even on the physical play. I didn't see any major difference.
There was definitely pushback whenever Montreal laid out somebody like Barclay Goodrow got laid out in the first period. Like later on, Goodrow came back and rubbed somebody out, or Gallagher did something, and then Coleman came back at him. There was always a response. Montreal could not get away with sort of the stuff that they did against Vegas. Sometimes Vegas didn't respond, and sometimes Vegas was too slow to even be able to catch up to Montreal. Whereas Tampa, equals Montreal's speed, and I think equals their pushback. And then it's a question of, okay, which is the better of the two goalies, and who gets the better of the scoring opportunity. So I'm not saying it's over. I picked Montreal in 4. I'm sticking. I can't stick with that prediction. So Montreal in 5 is my prediction now, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, we'll see. I mean, game 2 is the start for me. That's when I think it really starts. They got a feel for each other about how it's going to go, and they'll all adjust accordingly. And we'll see what happens. I mean, Carey Price can play with Vasilevsky, but Montreal just doesn't have the offense to compete with Tampa. But defensively, I think they're pretty equal. They play a little bit differently, but I just hearken to what John Cooper said. We play the way we play, and we think we like our chances when we play that way. So, and I think that's true. They're not going to change.
Nope.
They're just going to play the way they play, and hope for the best. And if you were anybody who parachuted in who didn't know anything about hockey would have said, "Boy, Tampa Bay was so much better." And the other thing too, block shots 3-1 for the Lightning. It was like 15 to whatever it was, but it wasn't very many. Tampa Bay had it going yesterday.
Yeah, and Russ said that Vasilevsky only really had to make 2 or 3 really good saves, and that's right. I mean, we've said Montreal's offense was limited. They've been able to score the last 3 games of the Toronto series, and through Winnipeg and through Vegas, they've been able to score. But Tampa plays defense like they do, and I think has a better offense than they have. So it's going to be tough for Montreal, but we'll see. Thanks a lot, Kevin.
Yep.
Appreciate it. For the departed Russ Cohen, for Kevin Allen, I'm Michael Agello. Thank you for watching. And remember, without the buzz, it's just hockey.